Okay, guess that means that we are live. All right, welcome everyone. Happy Friday, happy Black and Micro Week, and thank you so much for sticking around until, the evening, the morning, the afternoon, wherever you may be. I know it's been intense, but I'm happy to have you here. And if no one has said anything else to you yet today, you're fantastic and you're excellent the way you are. So I'm just going to head off this wonderful panel, and I'm Kayla Sakaris. I am a PhD candidate from Drexel University, and I'm happy to moderate this wonderful panel with a whole group of amazing researchers. So to start off, I have Dr. Marianne Johnson-Thompson, Professor Emerita of Biology from the University of District of Columbia, Adjunct Professor of Maternal, Child and Health from the School of Public Health at UNC Chapel Hill. I also have Dr. Salam Woldemskel from Clearview Healthcare Partners. I also have Dr. Charisse L. Hall from University of Maryland, who is a fire faculty leader. And I also have Fola Olusanya, and she is a PhD student over at New York University, Longhorn Health. So thank you, all of you. And before I just continue on, I just want to clearly state that the views reflect the individual panelists and not their employers. Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Kayla.
Thank you. Okay, so I feel like we have a lot to talk about, and there's plenty of directions that we can go. And the goal for today's panel is to really just focus on the theme of reflection. So my goal in general for this panel is to reflect on what has been and all the ways that we can go to build a future where we really can have a future that's equitable and inclusive for everyone. So with that in mind, I just want to just start off with a very simple question, such as which scientist made the biggest impact on you? So would anybody like to go first?
I'll go first. So the scientist that made the biggest impact on me, and she's no longer with us, African-American woman by the name of Marie Clark Taylor, who was the first woman to get a PhD from Fordham University in New York. She got it in botany, but when I was an undergraduate student, microbiology was in the botany department at Howard University. And then I did a master's at Howard in the botany department, but it was microbiology focused. And so Dr. Taylor was my mentor. She wasn't my thesis advisor, but she was my mentor, and she made a real impact on me, because when I saw what she had accomplished during a time in the 40s when it was very difficult, it gave me a lot of strength to move forward.
Oh, that's amazing. I feel like a lot of the people that inspire you are simultaneously like the ones that also mentor you. What about you, Charisse and Salam? Did you have mentors that also inspired you to be researchers?
Yeah, so for me, I would say it's like the first one is mentors, and then the second one is other Black or African scientists that I just saw growing up or randomly run into their website and felt like, I could be a scientist. Like there are people like me that do the things that I want to do. Just elaborating more on mentorship, I would say like the first people that like took a chance on me in undergrad and like allowed me to work in their lab and exposed me to science and encouraged me to like apply to like summer research programs. And then once I was in those programs, the people that mentored me and allowed me to go into graduate school. And then in grad school, my mentor, Erin Goley, who was just very supportive, but also taught me all of the other things that I needed, such as like, science communication, writing and presentations, and also like the support that I got in my postdoc lab. I would say it was all of my mentors and then all of the people that looked like me that motivated me, and I guess has made a significant impact in my career.
Oh, I feel that very deeply. I feel it deeply. I feel like for every step of the way, like that one person that you meet that show you what you can do, or even just help you get to where you want to do, like the next step, are just absolutely critical. And you know, along that vein, Dr. Hall Fola, what has been your experience in terms of like mentorships and like the scientists that really impacted you?
So for my undergrad, I went to a predominantly white institution. So I did my undergrad at Lawrence University, which is in Northeast Wisconsin. So that's cold, Green Bay. And so from my experience or my entry into the field was really my junior year in college. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do, but I really liked my microbiology course that I took. I was really surprised at how excited I was about going to lab every single day. You know, streaking bacteria, you know, it was cool. And then I was very fortunate to have a professor who just started working at the college at the beginning of my senior year to take a chance on me, a student he's never met, and to have a 1-year-long independent study in microbiology. And for that, for me, was pretty much the foundation of everything from going up to grad school and postdoc and my current job right now. So that's kind of what like inspires me to teach undergraduates, because it's so nice to get everyone interested early and try to build their confidence, and they can see that they can do, this is something that they can do. And I'm trying to instill like all the values that my mentors have gotten to me, so they kind of, you know, they're patient because you're gonna mess up, right? So they're all patient. So I try to instill that in my students. I try to be that as well, and then give them room to grow as scientists. So I think that's where I get my motivation from, and where I kind of, you know, learn how to be a good mentor, to get from what I noticed from all my mentors, so my undergraduates, my grad school mentor, my postdoc mentors.
Yeah, like I feel it really makes a difference for me. Like I had one person that I really connected with every step along the way, from high school, where I had a math teacher, and I was not originally interested in the sciences, but he saw potential in me and really forced me to think about it. And I had at the same time a science teacher that really was amazing. And I think the moment that I decided, you know what, I like teaching, I like working with students, was as a undergraduate student, in a funny way that life is very cyclical and things from the past will come back in your future, was that that same teacher that never gave up on me in my science classes, I somehow had her for biology, chemistry, and physics. She had a baby during the time I was in high school. And what was amazing to me is that I was running a girls in STEM workshop at a PWI school. And I was like, well, you know, I'm exhausted. I'm a senior. I have no idea what's going to happen in life. And my plans were not going the way I wanted them to. But I loved doing that workshop. And, you know, it was a point where I asked all the girls, like, what are you interested in being? And one girl was like, I just want to be like my mom. And I asked her, well, what does your mom do? And she started explaining exactly what her mom does. And I asked her, well, if you don't mind, what's your last name? When I found out, I could burst into tears, because that little girl was the daughter of my teacher. So things like that come get you, you know? So like, I don't know, like teachers really make the way. What about you, Fola?
Yeah, another mentor. I think I'm glad that we're all like shouting out the people who have been so important in that journey. My first mentor in undergrad, Dr. Carl Thompson, was huge in me becoming a microbiologist. I walked into lab not knowing how to pipette, not knowing anything that was going on. And he was just like, well, I see potential in you. You're willing to ask questions and you're willing to work. And so I want you to be a scientist. And he kind of just pushed me along this journey. I wasn't even super into micro at that point, but being in his lab and working with him, and, you know, able to make mistakes and things like that under his, you know, tutelage was very important. And I think just very pivotal in why I chose this path. So.
This is true. Like they really are kind of like that cornerstone. And I feel like as time goes on, I really want to help change the conversation with science and how it's viewed, and help mentor other people, you know, in terms of like educating them just about science, but also in microbiology, because I do want to be that person, like that person that looks like other people, that other people can look at and be like, you know what, there might be a chance. And so how do you all feel, let's just start with Slum. How do you feel about how the conversation about sciences, specifically microbiologists or Black microbiologists, has changed in the last, I don't know, 5 years?
I would say the past 5 years, or 5 years ago, I don't think I knew a lot of other Black microbiologists. But now, because of like Twitter and like, this event like Black Microbiology, I'm just like meeting a lot of people, and I'm realizing that we're not like, the only person in one building. There's like many of us in other institutions. So I would say, I guess, I don't know if the number has increased, or I'm just, because of like social media and like events like this, we're just getting connected and getting to know each other. But I'm excited for it.
Yeah, social media has been such a blessing. I feel like starting, my whole science career, I went to PWI school like throughout the entire track, and I knew no one. I was like that one person filling out the quota.
Yeah, same.
But it's like amazing just talking to someone, just picking up your phone and talking to somebody across the world, and they get it. They get it. So Fola, like, we're both, you and I are kind of like in the world where social media has become like integral. I mean, for me, I'm a little older, for me, I didn't know about Facebook until like the end of high school, but it's something that now, like with a tweet, we can have like thousands of people discuss. How do you feel about it?
Well, I love that social media is like becoming so integral to our lives, and as well as science, science Twitter being a thing and how important that is. Over the last year, I was doing my grad school applications, and I was like tweeting about it, and I was saying, okay, I'm having interviews this week or things like that. And the number of other microbiologists that kind of came to my support. I think last year, Black and Micro, I just tweeted, oh, I'm applying to PhD programs. And people were like in my replies showing me, okay, apply to this program, because I had no idea actually where to go. So I think that was really important. And to your original question, how the conversation has changed, I think it's been able to get louder. I think maybe we as like Black people have been having conversations. I know at Howard, I was surrounded by Black microbiologists, so we were all kind of discussing the way that we, functioned within that world, within the microbiology world. But I think through things like Twitter, we've been able to, have more conversations, and more people who don't necessarily fit in our demographic are willing to listen. So I think it's very important, and yeah.
I really think so. Like, I think the conversation has changed to the point where now our voices as a collective, like we can be heard over much longer distances. And even though it's awkward, oftentimes when people who don't fit into our demographic ask us these questions, it's starting a conversation about something, which I think is kind of impactful, especially for, the next generation of scientists. Like, I hope that this conversation, being as it is and where it will go, will help future scientists and future leaders kind of pick up the baton to keep on going. Miriam, do you have or Charisse, do you have any, insight on this as you have seen?
I can see why you did 5 years, because so many of you are young. And so, but I'd like to speak on the 5 year, but then take you back, right?
Sure.
So in the last 5 years, I think so much has opened up for Black microbiologists, from the various fellowship programs, the various funding agencies who mandate that grantees must have diverse individuals. Two, I think we all know Kizzy Corbett, and just seeing her on TV actually, and being so engaged in the cutting edge of vaccine development during the pandemic, I think she certainly a role model to say, oh boy, look what she's doing. So there has been, I think people are realizing that, there's so much untapped potential. So these programs have grown. But the thing that we have to remember, that a person like Kizzy Corbett, she was in the right place at the right time, right? Because there are other individuals who are just as strong, but they, just not in that, at the right place at the right time and prepared, okay? So it's preparation as well. Now I want to take you back to my time, because I got my PhD in the 70s. I was the first Black to get a PhD in the microbiology department in Georgetown Medical School. I wasn't the first student there. There had been 3 or 4 Black students before, but they had all dropped out. So everybody was looking for me to do the same thing, right? And, but I succeeded, had some stumbles, but back in those times, there was no such thing as a summer program for undergraduate students, summer programs for high school students. And so I didn't even know the term microbiology as a high school student. I didn't even know what that was. I grew up in the South, segregated school, limited resources. And I say all of that because, there's a lot of conversation nowadays among this generation of trainees that is so bad. And it really isn't. And I think one of the things that we have to do, and I'm basing this on my own experience because I was the same way, we have to separate what is really racial with what is people's personalities, okay? People's personalities, because as a student in an all-white environment, I can now look back on so many things and see that it really wasn't racial, though racism does exist. But if you, focus on that, it can really kill you. So I think that, there are more voices now and voices are being heard, but I think we have to use those voices very constructively for the next generation.
I feel like using, your voice and, the emergence of so many programs has helped. I had a whole range of mentors. Some of them are fantastic. Some of them showed me exactly who I wanted to be instead. And I really had to sit there and think a good while, like, was it really racism, or was it maybe their personality? Was it just them not knowing the difference between what is considered acceptable and just, letting microaggressions fly? Which, in PWI schools, microaggressions are is pretty much as common as you breathe. And I kind of, had a good luck about being at the right place at the right time with the right mentors and being in the right program. And I, for one, went through a program in my sophomore year. That is probably one of the few reasons why I sustained, my desire to kind of go through this whole education bit. So can you elaborate a little bit more about, the right place and the right time? Like, do you think that happens a little bit in everything, or is it just really like serendipitous? Sorry, mispronounced that.
Well, let's
5 o'clock, not enough caffeine.
Let's face it. A lot of people do have special privileges. Okay, I mean that's just the way the world is. Whether those privileges come when you're at an HBCU or within your family. So, or if you are of the majority race and you get those privileges. So, but I think that the important point is to be prepared and to maneuver yourself in such a way that you can, at some point in time, be in the right place at the right time. But I want to get back to because you made a good point when you were talking about, is it just the way people are? And I think about we as Black people, and I can only say this because of my many years, right? So we as Black people, we expect people to understand who we are. So a good example is Black people believe in saying hi to everybody, right? White people don't do that. You know, they don't see the necessary. So we take it as as an affront to us if somebody doesn't speak. So that's just one little example of, you know, different cultural attitudes. And just as we want people to understand us, we kind of have to put ourselves out there to understand them as well.
Okay. Those are very good. There's a very good points because there's a lot of cultural differences. And, you know, with the world today being so interconnected via media, so many things can be misinterpreted. So,
Absolutely.
but at the same time, like, yes, there's room for interpretation, but because of that, I feel like there's a lot of room for growth. So continuing this theme, you know, this vein of thought, Dr. Hall, I'm just going to bring you up on the spot. What do you think about like these new programs that help educating like the next generation in terms of like figuring out what the collective, you know, culture is? Not necessarily understanding all the different cultural differences, but knowing like stepping into the sciences or stepping in, you know, like in whatever environment that they are, like what would be the best skill set to have?
So let me just rephrase your question. So you're asking me about the programs that are available for budding students, so like high school students, undergrads, that are available to them so that they can learn more about microbiology.
Yeah, learn about more microbiology, learn what it's like to be a young professional and learn how to manage their environment. Because a lot of the times we're kind of navigating this world and we just don't have the tool set. And like Miriam brought up, like I walk in, I say hi to everybody, but my coworkers may not want to say hi to me at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, that's true. So for me, I think based on my prior experience. So I came to the US from Jamaica. So I came as a international student, and based on what I saw from my perspective, there really was very limited options for me outside of my university to get research experience. So coming from I guess what I'm seeing now that's available to US domestic students is that there's a plethora of options available for them. And it's up to them to take advantage of it, but also to actually know about it. So I think many of these programs, people just don't know about it, and not many people apply. And so, you know, those are like not wasted, but missed opportunities. I think one thing that I think, you know, social media is great at this, you know, to advertise things to a lot of people. But there are people like me who don't like social media. So sometimes it can kind of be a little hassle to actually get that information out. So I remember when I was at grad school, I participated in a program that kind of had students, I think it was high school students in the Milwaukee area, to see what my lab was like. So I had a number of students from diverse background. They came in, they saw where I worked. They saw, you know, they kind of saw what bacteria looked like. So I showed them a Petri plate. So I think, you know, giving students the opportunity to just see what's out there is usually probably the best way to go about it. And again, there are so many opportunities out there. It's either there's some communications. I think with social media, the word can get out there much quickly. But, you know, there's a plethora of, you know, research opportunities. I'm at UMD, so we have this first year innovation program. So students straight out of high school get straight into a lab and they get that experience, that research experience. So right now I have students learning how to pipette. I have students trying to learn how to use bacteria. And these are actual skills I learned in my senior year of college. So they're like 3 years ahead of me right now in terms of the experience that they're getting in the lab. But I think, you know, you just have to try something and you have to ask. And kind of get your feelers out, you know, if you see somebody, you know, it never hurts to ask. And the reason why I'm saying that as well is that, again, as a junior, you know, my mentor in undergrad, he never met me. I just asked. hey, would you be willing to take me on, to have you, work in your lab for a credit? And he was like, yes, sure. So again, not to ramble, but there are so much opportunities out there. Just have to try and not to be afraid to fail, because you're gonna fail, but you're gonna learn. And whatever you do, you're not gonna make the same mistake twice, hopefully.
Yeah.
But it is okay to fail. It took me a really long time to learn that as well. that was in my third year of grad school, but it is okay to fail, and you just pick yourself right back up and just do it again.
That's so true. I feel like learning that it's okay to fail is like a critical thing. And, for me, I decided to become a researcher very late in the game, and I didn't have any good skills until grad school. And I feel like what I did learn, and this is before Twitter, okay, like this is when Twitter was just starting. I was just like, okay, researcher, you go to school, you stay in school, you have a lab. Like there's a bunch of things that we all know we can now do, but like think about all the missed opportunities along the way, because I only had one little picture of what a person in microbiology could be. So just to kind of go along that vein of thought, perhaps like just also incorporating a question from Hova. Salam, what do you think about all of this? Like, how do you find a way to kind of capture all the potential opportunities and make yourself, or like kind of promote or push yourself towards a direction of being at the right place and at the right time?
I think that's a difficult question. I think there's a lot of luck also involved. Being at the right place at the right time is, you just have to be lucky. Of course, you have to be smart and you have to work hard, but you also have to be lucky. And I don't think that's something you can plan. Like no one could have planned COVID and like worked in a lab that was developing like a vaccine. Like, there's no way you can plan those things. I think you should just work on your passions and the things that you're interested in. And along the way, a lot of opportunity will come to you, and you just hop on those opportunities and more opportunities will come.
Yeah, this is true. Like you just can't foresee some of the things that happen. And I think it's also important to know that even if you ask a question, the answer no is okay. It may not be the one that you want.
I
but
agree.
asking, and failing, at least you tried. So
Yes.
I think a lot of my lucky moments has been going up to someone that I respected and I was really scared to talk to, and just asking like, do you need someone to like pipette things around? Like I set the bar really low because I was afraid of failing. But I was just like, would you take me on as a grad student? My current mentor, I met him at a conference and I was terrified. He presented this whole beautiful talk on pangenomics. And at the time I never heard it before. And I stepped up to him and I was like, hey, do you have space for a grad student in maybe a year? So it's one of those things. It's a powerful thing to ask a question. It's true that everybody has their own privileges and their own amount of luck, but I feel like it changes. And now with things changing constantly on us, I feel like maybe the playing field has become a little bit more even.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also agree with like just being more persistent and determined, because there will be a lot of no's, but you just have to, keep working and keep asking, and there will be some yeses, and those yeses will make your career. And I feel like, I guess from everyone that's spoken so far, that has been our experiences, but it was also the same to me where like first year of undergrad, I wanted to do research, and there were like all the biology professors wanted to leave the spots for like more senior students. And so I was very disappointed, and I was complaining to my chemistry professor, and he was like, well, I didn't realize you wanted to do research. You can just work in my lab. And then after that, I changed my major to chemistry. So like it's just, I didn't know I was going to be a chemistry major when I started, but I just kept jumping on opportunities. And, as long as you're doing what you like, I think that's all that matters, and things will just work out.
That's true. Like I originally wanted to be pre-med because, a lot of people, especially a lot of families, my parents came from Cuba and Puerto Rico, and they were like, doctor, that's just the only way. And I was like, I'm going to be an MD. Yeah. And talking to a chem professor, he's like, you're so good in lab, and you're so happy in lab, and you're so miserable studying for the MCATs. why not? So that's kind of, you know, those little moments, they really make a difference. And to kind of move along, because I'm a chatty Cathy, what resources you would love to tell the crowd, or like things that you wish you knew back then, that would really be helpful to people now? Like on your journey, what critical things that you learned along the way, aside from it's okay to fail and no is okay?
I would say it's okay to like ask people, for example, for fellowship applications, if there's like a successful applicant from the past, it's okay to just reach out to them and ask. The worst they could say is no. And I wish I was more confident in like reaching out to people and asking for resources like that early on. And then another resource I would say, like Science Twitter, I think like everyone Black should get on Science Twitter and just connect with each other, because, you know, we're all we have, and then there's also allies and they're willing to support us. So I think visibility is important in some sort of way.
It's true. True. Fola, is there any resources that you wish you knew back then that you know now that you would like to tell the crowd?
Yeah, I have to second the Science Twitter comment. I think it was so important to me in my path to grad school. This is very social media heavy. Unfortunately, I'm addicted to my cell phone. So
It's okay.
I think like PhD Balance is an account on, I think, Twitter and Instagram. And in like my first few months of my PhD, I think it's been really important in helping me understand that like I'm not just this person who reads papers. Like I have other things I need to do, and I have mental health that I need to take care of. So that's been really important. Also just taking advantage of resources of schools. I think for a long time, I've worried about not necessarily taking up too much space or taking up other people's resources, like in terms of mental health, tutoring, TAs. So coming into graduate school and having access to like mental health services has been so great. So I would just advise people, like if they put it on the website, if they put it on the pamphlet, like do it, use it, especially if it's free. Yes, go for that.
Oh, sorry. Who?
I second what Fola just said.
I third that. I feel like, you know, it's been such a pressure to be independent and pave your own way, but at the same time, like going through grad school and academia, you feel that push to be like the most efficient human being possible. Read papers, do the experiments, write your articles and publish them as fast as you can. But it's really difficult to do that and simultaneously still feel like yourself and still be able to take up space. So I'm just going to go around the group. Marianne, what are your thoughts on that?
The mental health issue or the piece of what I learned later? Which one? What did you want to add? What do you want me to?
Let's start with the mental health one.
Okay, so I have my feelings about mental health, okay? I think for so long in our society, we considered people who had mental health problems as aberrations, okay? But it turns out, through my experience, everybody has mental health problems. And most of them really get upticked if you have a failure, right? If you fail, and somebody just said it's okay to fail. And that's what we need to really talk more about. It is okay, as long as you know that you have done your best in terms of studying and getting to know the information and you fail, it's okay, because you can pick up and continue on. So I tell my sons this, you know, that mental health issues are part of everybody's persona. And if you fail, it will be enhanced, you know, your issues will be enhanced. And that should be normal. In other words, I think what we have said as abnormal, it's more normal to have these mental health issues. But the other thing that I wanted to say, what I learned, and this is very interesting, because as all pre-doc students and some postdoc fellows, there's this tension between the advisor and the student, right? There's always that tension. And I had some huge tension that I mixed up with, you know, racism. But I had an older major advisor. Because we had a major advisor who was not your day-to-day advisor nor your mentor, but he was supposed to be an objective person. And he told me something one day. He said, you know, Marion, he said, the relationship between the advisor and the student is like a marriage. Well, I hadn't been married yet. And to me, that just sounds really ridiculous. But he went on to say, both individuals are dependent upon each other. So the research advisor, if you are in his lab, your progress, his progress depends upon what you do. And your progress depends upon what he does. Does he get grants? Can he supply the resources that you need? And then, of course, I got married and I really saw what the relationship was. I was pretty lucky, though I had this tension. My advisor was new. He had just started in the department. And you know, that was the best kind of advisor to have because he was trying to get tenure. And he worked hard and he had me working hard. And that's what you want to go for. You don't want to necessarily go for the biggest lab because there are plenty of people working there. I was the first and the only one in his lab. So he spent a lot of time with me because he wanted to make sure that I succeeded. So that's just a little piece of advice in terms of how do you select a lab? You should always consider that. It's not necessarily that you go into the most popular lab or the lab that has the most people. If you can get a hardworking faculty who is on tenure track and doesn't have tenure yet, you'll be in good shape.
I think that's so true. I never considered, a marriage, as my definitely new perspective here. But it's true. It's so true. My advisor is definitely a work hard, play hard kind of a person. And man, when he pushes, it's a lot. But at the same time, my goodness, has it driven me to really expand my skill set and just thinking of who I was at the beginning of my PhD journey and where I am now. It's like amazing because there really is that dependency going on. Like how I work and how I deliver is completely tied with how he functions. So Charisse, do you find this like this is kind of a true thing? Does it only, I think it happens at all levels, but what do you think?
Oh, it's definitely true. I definitely thought it I remember when I was starting grad school too, and I was like, oh my God, 5 to 7 years, that's a marriage. Without even thinking about the interdependency. But it's so true. But the thing too, I just realized it too when Marion said this is there is an interdependency. Like we only think about the student being dependent on the mentor, but we never think that the mentor is depending on us. It's like, well, that's true, right? Because we're actually generating data. So it is very true. Yeah, so my PhD advisor too, when I started, it was his first year as well. And so, kind of similar thing, you work hard, picked up new skills. And then my postdoc advisors, they both had tenure. So it was a little bit of a different approach with it. But my most recent postdoc advisor, he's hardcore as well. So he's always pushing, regardless if it's tenure or not tenure. He's like on the go fast, which is good because it kind of helps me to keep up. And as a mentor, he was always, when you choose a mentor, you want to be somebody that clicks, because and you want to make sure that there are things about your mentor you're okay with. So my postdoc mentor is very direct, and some people probably don't like that. I was okay with that because I'm also very direct. But you should always find a mentor that you have a good click chemistry with. And you want a mentor who's going to give you room to grow. So when I was choosing my graduate school mentors, I geared towards people who'd ask me questions during the meeting. What do you think we should do next? Or what do you think went wrong? As opposed to telling me what to do next or what went wrong. That's what I looked for when I was choosing my PhD advisor. And he did a great job of that. You also want to look at an advisor who has skills that you want to learn. So my PhD advisor, he was really good at writing. Like his writing style is impeccable. And so, I hopefully between the 6 years I was there, I was able to also improve my scientific writing as well. So it's kind of a big picture, like what skills do you want to take with you, and who do you think is going to help you to grow and give you a space to grow, as opposed to telling you what you should do next, because that's not going to really help you.
This is true. Like it really should be like, just like anything, you should work as a team, as a unit to like go forward. And my advisor was new in the field that I am doing research in. So in a sense, he was like brand new, but totally willing to work with me. And I went to him going, thinking, I was quiet. I didn't, I had questions, but didn't want to verbalize them for fear of failing. But he was very direct and very comfortable with saying his opinion. And I felt like, he lets me think for myself, but also, pushes me in the right direction when I'm floundering. And I wanted to kind of grow in that way. So Salam, what about you? What is your experience with like mentors and how they kind of shape you?
I would say like mentorship is the most important thing to like be a scientist. I think it's just really difficult without, guidance and like, someone teaching you things. And I mean, I would feel the same way. Like the biggest impact, like I said earlier, in my career has come from my mentors, just like supporting me and guiding me in my science. Yeah, I'm gonna second everything that everyone said. It's like really important to figure out what your weaknesses are and to work with someone that's willing to help you develop them. And like what Marian said too, I think there's like an importance in joining like a new lab with a mentor that's also just like trying to build their lab, because you're going to have a lot of one-on-one time with them, and they're going to teach you everything that they know, and you're going to have a lot of conversations that are going to allow you to grow, and they're going to be able to like read and give you feedback on your papers very quickly and help you build your presentations and like teach you how to like present like confidently. And so yeah, like mentorship is the most important thing, and without a mentor I don't think it's possible to become a successful scientist.
Yeah, I think mentorship is really critical. And one of the things that I also learned is like, yes, your PhD advisor or your master's advisor, your college advisor, whatever level you are at, they're critical. But in the case that you don't have that person, it is so important to have like this network of people that could support you. Like there's so many levels of mentorship and advocacy, right?
Yeah.
And
with that also, I would say like, for grad students that are, or in postdocs that are not in like the right lab, I think if you feel like it's not the perfect fit, you don't have to like stay in that environment for like years and years. Like when you realize you're not getting what you want out of it, and you're not growing as a scientist, then it's also okay to change and go somewhere and find a mentor that's gonna support you in the ways that you need to be.
Yeah, I think it's super important. A lot of the times we kind of just stay in one place thinking, you know, I'm going to power through. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And there might be more damage in staying than leaving.
Yes. Yeah.
Fola, I saw you were going to say something.
I just want to
Sorry.
say this is all really good advice. I'm starting my rotation next week. So I'm just like scribbling this down. So yeah, thank you all for this conversation about mentors, because I've definitely had a few mentors in the past, but moving forward, I definitely want to pick the right one during this process of getting my PhD. So
It'll come, and you'll find someone that you connect with. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that even if you have this ideal list, right, of what the perfect mentor can be, we're human beings, right? The critical thing is, can you work with them and can you grow with them, right? And can they push you to be better? But also, it's okay to find a support network in the community that you're in, whether that is another student, maybe like senior than you, right? Or maybe just like another faculty or staff within the group that you can kind of just talk to and learn from. So that's also very helpful in like growing as a scientist. So any last minute thoughts on this subject before we start our last questions and then wrapping it up?
Well, I'd like to comment on something Cherise said about honesty. I think, you know, you should think in terms of the fact that you want an advisor who's going to be honest with you. And sometimes you may have to ask that. You may have, especially as a minority female, you may have to say, look, I want you to give me the honest truth about this. Because at any time, the advisor feels that what he's saying to you, that you don't, you know, that you don't accept it as constructive criticism, then that advisor will stop advising you. They'll be very hesitant and you won't get the full experience.
Mm-hmm.
I had a boss once that I could tell he wasn't giving me good, you know, good advice. And I just asked, I said, how would you have done this differently? And then the response came that I was looking for. So sometimes you have to ask so that the person feels comfortable, because really, especially if it's a new investigator, they're learning as well.
This is true. This is true. I feel like you have to, not to set the pace, but I feel like at any point you should be clear and tell them, I want feedback. I know for myself, public speaking is terrifying. But with my advisor, he gives so many talks. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to like really work with him. And one of the first things I asked was, hey, I'm doing a practice presentation. I want you to come and I want you to write down or at least correct me for every single thing you think I could improve upon. And it's hard asking for that feedback because the last thing anybody wants is a list of what they need to work on, right? And as a student, it's like, oh man, when is it going to end? But it's important, right? It's important. Okay. All right. So last question. For the people that are just starting out, they're in high school, college, or, you know, they're science enthusiast, what is the best way to get involved in microbiology? I feel like we've discussed a lot about mentorship. So perhaps one of those answers could be finding a mentor. But and you know, we've discussed how to identify them. But for those high schoolers considering microbiology, what would you say to them?
Well, that's very hard for a high schooler because generally they won't, you know, they won't have teachers who are microbiologists, right? So what they could do, and then it's so hard for them to get this kind of information too. So I think some of us as mentors that run into these students, we have to tell them that there are summer programs for high school students, because depending upon the school they are attending or the people who are in charge of receiving this kind of information, and the schools do get it because all of these programs are looking for high school students, right?
Mhm.
So whether it's shared with everyone equitably is another question. So that's the best way, I think, to get involved in a summer program, unless you are lucky enough to have a family member or a friend of the families who is working in microbiology, and then you could ask them, do you have any opportunities at your school, or do you know some other places?
Mhm. So really like hunting for those opportunities, or perhaps like even sharing the opportunities around you. And I feel, we're lucky nowadays. We can just put it on blast on, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, your favorite social media platform of choice. So I feel, that's certainly one way. What about you, Fola? What other ways do you think could be helpful?
I think there are so many ways to go about this. Just like you said, social media, like I'm a big Twitter person, so I guess I think it's really important for people to, use those resources that they have that are free and available, things like Black and Micro, that just kind of open you up to so many mentors, so many people to talk to, like, and really make these connections, are very important. And that's why I'm so thankful for Black and Micro. I think also, if you're fortunate enough to live in a place where there's a college, to maybe try to make those connections. And I know that's probably difficult. I never did that when I was in high school. So I can only imagine like what it might feel like to be a high schooler and going up to a PI and being like, hi, I'd like to work with you. So I don't know if I would necessarily advise that, but definitely just also, I think another thing is perfecting what you know about microbiology when in high school, expanding that knowledge, trying to read papers if you can, just to get that, just to build your strength in micro. Because I mean, for me, I think we only had general biology classes. I didn't talk about microbes until I got to college. So really just building your skill set, if you can't do that with, an institution on your own, I think, and like YouTube, all these, once again, I'm going back to social media, all these things that resources that talk about microbiology are really important. So yeah, like start at home.
Yeah, starting at home is critical, and YouTube is a fantastic resource with the things that you can just look up and learn. And I feel like high schoolers nowadays, things have changed, and I feel like there's so much push now in terms of figuring things out. You don't have to have a set career path. And, there's always that one high schooler that just knows and somehow finds you. And it's heartening. And, and at times a tad bit scary because things are changing so much and you want to promise them the world. But, the reality is the way the reality is. But, starting at home is the best way.
So I wanted to add one comment that's not non-social media, and that one would be outreach programs. I think there's a lot of science outreach programs out there available that students can participate in. I remember I did a few when I was in Wisconsin. So they had like a science day where students would come in and, PIs and graduate students and postdocs would have that little outlet, like to do a little demonstration. So I'm sure DC, I'm in the DC area. I'm sure DC also has a lot of scientific outreach through ASM. So just trying to find, again, if you have a college nearby, university nearby, there's always doing some science, community science programs.
That's awesome. I honestly wish I knew about those outreach programs, back then. Okay, so, All right, so unfortunately, the hour has flown by so quickly. I wish I could ask you so many questions, but that's all the time we have for today. I thank you so much for your time. And before we go, I just want to ask all of you if you can just, quickly say where people can, find you and contact you if they have like any further questions or if they're trying to find their way now through the field of, microbiology and figuring out what they want to be. So starting with Salam, could you just start us off?
Yes, I'm just gonna type in my Twitter handle, and then people can DM me for questions if they have any questions. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good. So it was put in the chat. I'll just read it out loud for the people not looking at the chat. It's, oh my goodness, SWARMISMS. Just like reading that out for people.
I could also just change my name on here to that.
No, it's okay. Oh yes, perfect. That's perfect. That's okay. So next on the list, Miriam, how can people contact you?
Yeah, they can. I'm not a social media person. Part of my generation. That's the way we are. Well, some of us. So I'm at M. Johnson Thompson, all together. M. Johnson Thompson, all together at AOL.com.
Thank you. And I'll make sure to put that on the chat in just a bit. Okay. Charisse, you're next.
On the similar vein, I'm also not a social media person. So yeah, email or just also just send me a message on LinkedIn. My email address is cljhall@gmail.com.
Thank you. That's awesome. Fola, you're next.
I'm also going to change my name to my Twitter. The second L, the L in Fola, is actually a capital I. So if you are searching for me, make that correction. I'm also, you can find me or email me. It's just olufolakemi@nyu.edu. I'm always, my email's on my phone, so I will probably get back to you very quickly. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So you guys are all amazing. I'm actually terrible at social media. I have a Twitter. I am very bad at Twitter, but it's at ksoka4. And I do have an Instagram. That's usually my social media platform of choice. And you can find me at Kayla Jones. So thank you so much. That's all we have for today. But honestly, it's been a wonderful week, and Black and Micro Week is every week.
And thank you, Kayla. You did a great job.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you did.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Okay. So let's see. Can I? Oh, the